Well, for those of you who do not live in the United States or are unfamiliar with the ways of the United States and the history of the United States, well, we live there, and today is July 4th, and the Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th.
Take that, Albion.
1776.
Give or take.
Yes. So, on July 4th, we don't have to go to work. We don't have to do anything. And usually there's a bunch of fireworks, but
it's been raining continuously for the last 4 hours.
And fireworks don't work in the rain because they need fire, not water. That's why they're fireworks. They work with fire. They're not waterworks, which work with water.
Also, while there are fireworks that would work just fine in the rain, the issue is more that there's not going to be anyone sitting outside in the rain to watch them.
That's also true. So, we don't really feel like doing a full show because we're having a day of relaxing and whatever. But we can't do no show because we're too awesome for that.
See, normally we'd be on the beach right now. The problem is, in America, we're generally pretty practical about our vacations and our holidays. So if a holiday falls on a Thursday, we tend to move it to the Friday so we can have the 3-day weekend.
Yeah, like Memorial Day is always a Monday. So that way, we always take 3-day weekend. You don't have like this, go to work Monday, get off Tuesday, then go to work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
But you might notice tonight's Wednesday. They couldn't really move it in either direction. They just kept it on Wednesday. And as a result, the majority of Americans went to work for 2 days, took today off, and are going to go to work for 2 more days.
Actually, a lot of people just took vacation to get, the 5-day weekend. Or
I was gonna.
They went on super vacation all week because now they can spend one less vacation day and still get the whole 9-day vacation.
If you want to min-max, you got to take the Monday, Tuesday, or the Thursday, Friday off, because then for the price of 2 vacation days, you get a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off.
Yep. But we didn't do that because we're using our vacation days for the Otakons.
And our writer's retreat.
Yep. So it's just, middle of the week, day off, nothing to do. So we're going to do a special episode of Geeknights.
Now, special has special connotations when it comes to us. We haven't done one in a while, so we figure we should explain it, especially since we have a lot of new people, a lot of new faces in the forums.
Yeah. If this is your first time listening to Geeknights, this is not a normal episode of Geeknights. It does not follow the standard Geeknights format. It is just us talking for about a half hour about something. We don't have our usual things of the day. We don't have news. We don't have anything we usually do. So, if you want to get familiar with the show, you should go and listen to some other episode. Almost any other episode that does not have the word special in the title.
Yep, pretty much. Listen to any Tuesday night show if you want to hear about gaming, Wednesday for anime and all that. But feel free to check out any particular episode. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Pick a topic you like.
And if you're already a Geeknights listener, well, this is all you're getting today. So, deal with it.
Though there was a lot of anime news, and I really want to talk about it. But
yeah,
I'll
there's
save
a
that.
lot of news coming out of the Anime Expo. A whole bunch of licenses, news about Anime Expo itself, all sorts of stuff. But we're not going to talk about it now. We're going to wait for everything to chill out and for all the facts to settle, and then we'll talk about it.
Rest assured, we're going to have the Anime Expo news extravaganza next week.
Even though we've never been to Anime Expo, and I don't imagine we'll go there anytime soon.
Well, the thing is, I'll go to Anime Expo if I am going to the West Coast for a con, and I'm already going to PAX and the San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, and in order for me to go to those, it's like, well, I guess you could go to Anime Expo and San Diego because they're within the same month, so you could make it one big trip. But that would be so many vacation days to make up the weeks in between the 2 weekends.
That's the kind of time when, for me, I just quit my job and then start a new one at the end of the vacation.
Yeah, I mean, they're both 4-day conventions, right? So, I don't know. It's tough. You'd have to take, like, the whole month of July off. And then you'd still need the month of August off to go to PAX.
But if I'm going to take a month off, I'd rather just go to Turkey or something. I'm not going to go around the U.S. Yeah.
Why Turkey?
Turkey's
sort of random.
Actually, no. I've been thinking about going to Turkey for some time now.
Uh-huh.
I want to see all the old Byzantine stuff. And
that Byzantine emperor guy, the Turkish, I guess the Turkish board of tourism should hire him.
Yeah.
Because he's encouraging Turkish tourism.
Well, actually, Emily was telling me that apparently there's been a big push for tourism to Turkey. And
they've got some cool stuff there. You can get a Turkish shave.
The thing is, we can go there pretty cheaply. A lot cheaper than we could go to Europe.
Yeah, but I want to see castles. And
There's castles.
yeah, but they're different kinds of castles.
Yeah, they're better, far superior, much cooler.
No.
Let's see. On one hand, we have the decaying remains of the Roman Empire, one of the greatest empires in the history of humanity.
We can go see that in Rome.
One of the it's not the same because the Byzantines held on. They kept going, and they had the Greek influence. And
we can go to Greece and Athens.
You realize that most of the original Greek city-states, nothing remains of what was there. Just
Parthenon.
About. Yeah, but not so much. There's a lot more Byzantine stuff left
We
in
can go
Istanbul.
to Cyprus.
I would like to go to Cyprus.
We could also go to the Carcassonne.
I actually, after Richard...
I'm pretty sure, though, we are not the first people who will play Carcassonne at the Carcassonne.
However, I
think someone has beat us to it.
While I saw someone took his set of Amon-Ra and took a picture of his pharaoh next to the Great Pyramid, I have not seen anyone take pictures of meeples standing in the Carcassonne.
I'm pretty sure someone's done it, but I haven't seen it yet. But it's got to be done.
I never really knew it was a real specific place until Richard...
We should go to Iraq and with our Tigris and Euphrates.
Yeah, Iraq's the place we want to be.
Yeah.
You know, actually, as a CS guy and an IT guy, we could spend like 6 months there and make like our annual salary 4 times over. And the odds of dying are pretty low.
They are pretty low, but they're much higher than they are for me right now.
See, I work in the Bronx, so...
It's still not even close to Iraq. Anyway, today, for our special episode, we're going to talk about anime marathons.
You see, we've mentioned offhand all these marathons we've done in the past, and we speak of them very highly, but we always kind of offhandedly like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, like when we marathoned Ava the second time. We never really went into detail about that.
Basically, what it comes down to is that anime, at least traditionally, when you have a Japanese animated TV series, it's serial, in that, all the episodes go in order and tell one larger story. So you want to watch all the episodes in order to get the big picture. However, they're 26, almost 30-minute episodes usually. I mean, some series are longer, some are shorter. Some episodes are longer, some are shorter. But you've got, in general, most of the shows are 26 episodes and about almost a half hour per episode. That means you got to sit there for 12 hours or so if you want to watch the whole show. Now, you can watch an episode a day, which is how I watched Macross TV.
It's how we watch most anime nowadays.
Yeah. You can watch episodes as they come out every week. That's not so bad either. But if a show is already out on DVD in full, and you have the box set, why not just sit there for 12 hours and watch the whole thing?
Now, the key benefits of this are very simple. Number one, there's always the problem of, me and Scott have seen blah, blah, whatever show, but Alex hasn't. So we lend it to Alex, and then all of us have seen it. But Pete hasn't seen it. But maybe Katsu's seen half of it, and Adam's seen the end, but not the beginning. And we have kind of everyone's at a different state, so we can never really talk about the show or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, the best thing to do is to get everyone together and watch the show in one shot. And then we know you've all seen it all. We can talk about it right then.
Everyone's seen it in order. Everyone's seen every episode. Nothing's missing. It's all good.
Now, 2 is just the fact that watching a show in marathon format is awesome, but we'll get into that with a bunch of anecdotal evidence.
Well, it's watching a show all at once is a very different experience than watching it, in separate pieces.
Yep, you'd start to notice a lot of things. Like a show like Ava, for example. If you watch it in its normal format, like once a week or even less often, depending on when the DVDs were coming out or when you were watching it, it's real easy to not notice correlations between subtle things that happen in one episode and subtle related things that happen in another episode.
Yes, like if someone does, if there's like a little visual cue or something, and it's repeated often, like once per episode or something like that.
Like an antenna.
Yeah, you won't notice it if you just see it once a week. Like it's the kind of thing where if you watch an episode of a show and then you wait, you're going to only remember, like, the big things. You're going to remember, okay, what happened last time? Oh, right, that robot fought that robot, and that guy died, and that spaceship crashed. And that you're not going to remember the little details like, oh, yeah, it faded to pink and then blue, and then it made this noise, about halfway through the show. Or, yeah, it played that song when that person appeared every time in the background very quietly. But if you watch the show in a marathon, what ends up happening is you sort of lose something and gain something. What you lose is that the episodes blur together because you're not allowing the events to sink in after watching them. It just sort of runs into this one giant epic. and you can't really tell where one begins and where one ends very well. But when there's subtle things that happen very often, you're bombarded with them constantly over these hours and hours, and you go, hey, I see that all the freaking time. That just keeps happening there. Look at that.
Plus, I mean, aside from all that meta, it just comes down to, for me, watching a show like that. I mean, I like to watch an epic. Lord of the Rings, other than the fact that I don't have enough free time, if my free time itself were not a factor, I would have preferred to have just waited and seen all of the Lord of the Rings in one shot at once without having to wait between the movies. I have no problem with watching a 4, 8, 12-hour epic in one day.
Well, it depends on exactly what it is I'm watching. There are some things where I think, because the experience of watching like the same exact thing in marathon form or in separated form is completely different. It's sort of like if you read a comic book one issue at a time every month, or you just wait for the trade. The experience is completely different.
It really depends on what kind of anime it is. I mean, Eva, Eska, a show that has a straight, contiguous plot, no filler, and it's just, the plot is progressing continuously. There's not a lot of recap, nothing like that. Those shows are absolutely perfect for a marathon.
Oh, they sure are.
But a show like, I don't know, Lupin the Third,
not good for a marathon.
There's no plot. It's completely episodic. The marathon's just going to fall apart. Or Magic Knight Rayearth, which while I like it a little, it's also really long and really repetitive.
But there are even some shorter shows that aren't good for marathoning.
Yeah.
It's not just the length. I mean, obviously, a show that's too long, like hundreds of episodes.
Notice I also said repetitive.
Yeah, like One Piece, not good for marathons. But also, there are some 13-episode shows out there not so good for marathons.
Yeah, but then there's like El Hazard, the original OAV, awesome for marathon.
OAVs are typically always awesome for marathons.
Yep.
Because they're usually a lot shorter than a 26-episode series, but they also have a contiguous plot over like 3 or 4 45-minute episodes. So it's like, oh yeah, gonna rock that.
Now, the reason we brought this up is just that we were thinking a lot about RIT and back in the day, and we remembered that one of our favorite pastimes, and we did this relatively often. See, RIT, there were tunnels connecting all the dorms, and on a weekend in the winter, when it's cold outside and no one has classes, you could do everything you needed to do for the entire weekend.
Without going outside.
From Friday morning, because no one had classes on a Friday, ever. I mean, unless you were dumb. No, I never had a class on a Friday.
Yep.
But you pretty much, from Friday morning until Monday morning, you did not have to set foot outside once. And yet, you could get to restaurants, there wasn't any more, but there used to be a bar over there.
You can get
the arcades.
Get your mail.
Get your mail, go to all the little grocery stores in the area. We could all meet in the dorms. We could break into one of the office-y areas and play board games.
You could do all sorts of crazy stuff down there.
So, oftentimes, if we were bored,
especially freshman year.
Especially because we were all freshmen at RIT, and we were all into anime, but a lot of us hadn't seen the big-name shows. Like when we realized that a full half the group hadn't seen Escaflowne, or hadn't seen Cowboy Bebop, we say, all right, next weekend, starting Saturday morning, we're going to watch the first half, and then Sunday we're going to watch the rest.
And we did exactly that.
Well, I'd put on the same pair of pajamas and just wear it all weekend long.
Yep. Those are good times. Now, I don't have time for that anymore. I got podcasts. I got a real job that takes all day. I got all kinds of stuff and no time for marathoning.
See, there's something really special about it, and you win out even if you've seen the anime before. Because if you're a newbie and you haven't seen Ava, now you're watching Ava with a whole bunch of people who, one, can answer questions if you really don't understand something, even though the answer is usually, watch the show. What are you asking me to spoil it for you? Watch the show. It'll be explained. Just watch it. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, my mom is big on asking questions.
Who's that?
While watching
What's going
movies.
on? Who's that guy in the mask? Is that the murderer?
Even if you watch a movie with my mom that no one, like in the theater, like on opening night, should be like, why is that? What is that over there? And you're like, just watch. You'll find out.
But you get the group experience and all that. But even if you've seen the anime before, because I had already seen Ava twice before we marathoned it.
I had seen it once before we marathoned it.
So while I had seen it a bunch of times, I already knew a lot about it, and I put a lot of thought into the show. Watching how other people reacted to scenes that I knew were coming up, and watching someone else realize certain things as the show went on, was almost as enjoyable as watching the show by myself the first time.
I don't know why that's enjoyable, but it definitely is. It's
Part of it is...
When I was watching you play Half-Life 2, and like you got to some parts, and like I knew the whole game because I've played it through 1.5 times, and just watching you go through the same experience was like, ooh, he's gonna get to this part. OMG, what's he gonna do?
I think part of it is you relive the experience. Like, remember the scene in Ava where the one robot eats the thing and then like the crazy plot happens and you learn something scary and that eerie thing happens?
Yep.
Not to spoil anything.
Yep.
That scene put chills through me when I first saw it, and I was just kind of in awe of, wow, what kind of show is this? That wasn't what I expected. This is, wow.
I expected that though, so.
But still, the way they did it, like a chill went down my spine.
Right.
And I remember watching a friend of ours who hadn't seen the show before, and they reacted the same way when that scene happened. And on one hand, I relived my experience. On the other hand, I felt validated in that, all right, that was a moment that really stuck out to me. And wow, this person had the same reaction to that scene.
Maybe that is something, because if I just play, let's say I just watch Ava again, right? It's not going to be the same experience for me if I just watch it again. But if I watch someone else watch it again, then it's sort of like the first time, even though it's not exactly the first time. It's sort of like, I guess, re-virginizing yourself.
Yeah.
In a way.
But it is.
Not completely, just in a small way. Like,
it works. It's like, I think part of it too is, especially if you're watching, like, say, like when Scott Johnson showed us all Cowboy Bebop.
Yep.
Way back. That was one of the defining moments in our lives. Because Scott Johnson, a good friend of ours now, was kind of one of the people who ran the anime club. And he was kind of
well,
aloof
he didn't. See, that was kind of weird. I remember.
Oh, he didn't really, but we thought he did.
I remember in freshman year, we always saw this guy who was always up there at the front of the anime club. And I was like, who's that guy? And he was that guy that was up at the front of the anime club that didn't say anything, and I didn't know he was, but I kept seeing him.
Now, we knew he was cool, and we assumed that he was the one who really ran the club, because he seemed like he was always there and always kind of in charge from the shadows.
But really, he wasn't on that board or anything.
He was just friends with everyone on the board.
He was just Scott Johnson. That's all he was.
Of course, he then went on, due to the political intrigue, to become president, and then I became president, but that's beside the point.
But besides the point, freshman year, there was a show, Cowboy Bebop. I didn't even know the show Cowboy Bebop existed until I went to RIT.
I had seen episode 5, the fight between Spike and Vicious.
I saw episode 5 at the first anime club meeting ever.
As did I.
And I knew that it was awesome. But I never actually got around to watching it. And then Scott Johnson said, all right, I'm having an official anime club Cowboy Bebop marathon. Come to this building this weekend and these 2 days, and we'll watch the whole thing.
Now,
and that's what we did.
Honestly, pretty much, that was one of the earliest front row crew moments, because the front row crew, like the original core of it, all went to this marathon. And then we became friends with Scott Johnson because he was the man who gave us Cowboy Bebop.
That he was.
And I gotta say, Cowboy Bebop is probably the absolute perfect show to marathon.
Well, I think the problem with Cowboy Bebop is that if you have all of it at your disposal in a DVD box set, and you have time to kill, and you begin watching, it's very difficult to stop watching.
We experimentally verified this. Was it Pete?
It was Alex.
It was Alex. Someone hadn't seen Cowboy Bebop all the way through.
Yep.
Like, they'd seen a little bit of it. And it was me and Scott and that person.
It was you, me, and Alex in Colony. I remember.
I don't know why I remember it being Pete.
I don't know either.
Well, I'm sure Alex and Pete can inform us which one of them it was.
I'm 90% sure it was me, you, and Alex in Colony late at night after getting back from something.
No, we were back from vacation waiting for everyone else to get back into town.
I think that was it, yes.
Anyway, so we're going to lend it to the person. Like, here, we'll watch the first couple episodes of Cowboy Bebop while we do this stuff, and then you can borrow the rest. And then we just kept watching it.
Until it was over.
And we just kept watching it, and then it ended. We were all sitting there staring at the screen after the last episode. And then I think it was Scott who said, so much for our weekend. We just watched Cowboy Bebop.
I think we actually we might have watched it from like 1 p.m. to like 2 a.m. or something like that. And thus, it really didn't kill the whole weekend.
It was entirely unexpected,
It was like 12 hours, so...
We accidentally marathon Cowboy Bebop.
I know, it's like 12 hours. You think that's a long time, but really, if you start watching at like noon, you'll be done at midnight. That's not really that long if you stop to eat.
Yep. Plus, I mean, the shows like Cowboy Bebop and actually really Escaflowne, because those two shows have this thing where the show, is really good and draws you along, and Escaflowne has the additional bonus of every third or fourth episode ends on a cliffhanger.
That's the other thing about marathons, is that cliffhangers completely lose most of their effect. Because while, the cliffhanger event happens and the event itself still has the impact, you don't have the pain of having to wait to see what happens next.
God.
You just have to switch DVDs and you're off.
I remember when I was in high school, and every month we bought, the day it came out, our friend Ken bought the next VHS tape of Escaflowne, and we then immediately watched it. Like, literally, he'd show up, and we'd watch the whole thing. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but the 7 out of 8 VHS tape of Escaflowne ends in one of the worst cliffhangers in all of anime.
Yep, definitely. I agree 100%.
And I remember sitting there, and then Dan Greer, a good friend of mine, turns and says, "You know, we have to wait a full month before we find out what the fuck was up with that, right?"
It sucks ass.
But that month took longer than much of the rest of my life to live through.
Well,
Of course, the anecdote I was getting to with that. So we're marathoning Cowboy. Well, no, we'll do the whole story. We're marathoning Escaflowne at RIT in like Saul 9 on the fancy TV in the nice lounge in the renovated building. And of course, actually, we met one of our friends, Laura, who we didn't really know her at all. Just this girl we'd seen. And she was walking by with her friends. And she saw that a bunch of geeks are watching an anime. And she kind of likes anime. So she brings all her friends in, like, "Can I watch?" And all of us think, "A goyle."
What, we all became Popeye all of a sudden?
So, of course, we say, "Yeah, sit down. We're watching Escaflowne. You just missed the first 3 episodes. Here's what you missed. Let's go." And after about 2 episodes, her friends are like, "Wait a minute. Are you going to watch this whole thing? How long is it?" And we're like, 12 hours, give or take. And they're like, "Oh, man, this sucks. Let's go." And Laura said, "I'm staying." And she became a member of the front row crew pretty much right then and there.
Yep. If you do a marathon in a semi-public space and people see what you're doing, you can, it sort of acts like a geek magnet sometimes. It's pretty useful.
So we didn't have all the box set with us. Like, it was kind of scattered around. So it was all like in other people's dorm rooms. And we'd go and get them like one at a time between DVDs to give people a chance to go to pee and get snacks.
I think we were watching VHSs.
We might have been. I don't remember.
I think we were.
Yeah, we were, because we got it from the anime club.
Yep.
Anyway, so we have up through 7. We don't have tape 8 with us physically. It's on another floor of the building. Tape 7 ends, and everyone goes, "Whoa."
Yep.
And then we sit there for a second, and I choose not to say anything, and Ken chooses not to say anything, because we've seen the show before. We know what happens. So we just sit there until eventually everyone goes, "Go get the tape. Go get it now." So we go. We get in the elevator, and we go down, and we get it, and we're on our way back up, and the elevator just stops.
The elevator got stuck at that time.
The elevator got stuck.
Not lying. The elevator actually got stuck with the 8th tape inside of it.
So me and Ken and like these 2 other people who we didn't know are standing there with the tape, and I turn and I think he's the one who said, "You know, it's probably ironic that the 2 people who've seen the show are in this elevator with the tape."
Yeah.
And then we're musing, I wonder what they're doing. I wonder if they're looking for us. I wonder how long they can wait. I wonder if they're just going to go out, break into the media play, and steal the last VHS tape.
Well, I guess that is a way to simulate the experience of having to wait for the cliffhanger. And it was slightly painful, but it wasn't so bad. I imagine your month wait was much worse.
For me, it was just hilarious.
Yeah,
it was like,
but then again, like I have an easier time waiting for cliffhangers than most people. Like, it doesn't bother me so much.
See, they don't bother me so much, but that particular cliffhanger, just because of...
That is one of the roughest there is.
Because I can't spoil it. I can't even talk about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if nothing else...
It's more like a space station hanger. You're hanging that far.
I think the moral is simply, if you marathon anime marathons, especially in colleges, are basically anecdote magnets.
Yep.
Something is going to happen. You're going to have a story to tell afterwards.
Spending 12 hours in a room with a group of people as a sequential work of art plays nonstop is like a recipe for awesome.
Plus, I mean, my favorite moment in any marathon ever was still at the end of Cowboy Bebop, because it was a shared experience of like 20, 25 people. And all of us watched this amazing work of art from start to finish, and it ended. And we all sat there as the closing credits played and finished. And then it was just a black screen with the projector just sitting there and idle. And for a good 5 minutes, no one said a word.
Nope.
Everyone just sat there. Like, the silence was palpable and painful, and no one had the balls to break it.
Nope. I noticed that at the end of a lot of shows, and like even just watching like a 90-minute movie, like if it's a serious kind of movie, people just do not have the balls to be the first person to say something.
But a marathon is so much more. It's kind of like when we talked about Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. The game itself was kind of meh, but because we played the game in marathon format, we took an otherwise mediocre game and turned it into this shared experience. And because it went on so long, I mean, it took longer than watching any anime. That was a long time to game.
It did. It took like all weekend.
It took like 18.
For like Friday night. It took like all Friday, all Saturday, and all Sunday.
Yep. Pretty much nonstop with a short break to sleep after Katsu fell asleep and ran away with the bus
We
kid.
slept a little bit Friday and a little bit Saturday.
And we stopped to go to a hockey game. But at the hockey game, we couldn't stop talking about Crystal Chronicles.
Well, we were strategizing about what we were going to do next. Like,
Yep.
yeah, we're going to go back there and then...
But the thing is, it's weird how if you take humans and put them in a shared experience that takes that much time, there's this level of bonding that you can't really get any other way. And like the experience, like I remember Cowboy Bebop as an experience, but I remember it colored by the shared experience of the people I watched it with. And I feel like it was a greater experience as a result.
Yeah, I remember the room, and I remember the people in there, and I remember everyone was laying on all... Because it was the chemistry lecture hall.
I remember when the crazy guy pulled out his airsoft MP5 and threatened to kill you.
Yep, that was pretty...
That was a funny story.
And when
for
we
another
switched
time.
up to the dubs as soon as we got to the mushroom
Mushrooms.
episode.
Oh, man.
Because the mushroom episode actually is one of the few anime where the dub is better than the sub. So when we got to the mushroom episode, we switched to the dub, and then we liked it so much we stayed with the dub through to the end.
One guy who was super fanboy said, damn it, you guys, if you don't change it back to the real sub, I'm leaving. And I note that he didn't leave.
Yep. Yep.
But seriously, like that shared experience. And then I remember after it ended, and eventually someone turned the lights on, and everyone kind of shuffled out of the room in a daze. And almost the entire group was walking together back across the quarter mile to the dorms. And eventually the conversation started, and we talked about Cowboy Bebop for quite some time.
Hard not to. I mean, if you do something with some people for like, a day or two, and you don't do anything else in those 2 days, and you're doing it with the same people the whole time, you kind of don't have much to do after that other than talk about what you just did.
Plus, now that I think about it more, your focus in the world kind of narrow. I mean, now when you're watching a movie and when you first sit down in the theater, like you still see the seats in front of you and the walls of the theater and the lights and your hands. And if the movie's bad, you still see those things. But if the movie draws you in, you forget that you're in a theater and you just see what's going on.
Yep.
But when you watch a marathon, when you marathon something that long in one contiguous stretch with a bunch of people, it's almost like your worldview narrows to where you only exist in that room watching that show, and you start to forget about all your other concerns.
Yeah, you absolutely you pretty much guaranteed you forget about your homeworks, your job, your family, everything. Anything outside of that room is completely lost, and even the stuff that's in the room and outside of the show get completely lost. It's very surreal and awesome.
When we were on Ava the first time, we forgot to eat for a while, and then we were like, "Oh crap, we got to eat!" And it took a while for us to realize that fact.
Yep, good times.
And I remember very specifically the Escaflowne marathon. It finished, and it was like Sunday evening, and we all go to get dinner, and I go back to my dorm room, still like really thinking about that show because I fucking love that show. And then I sit down in my computer desk, and I'm like, and then I remembered suddenly that I had this life where I was a student going to college, and I had homework, and I had classes the next day. And it kind of...
You weren't being transported to another world.
No.
Of fantasy and dragons and guys with wings and robots.
It sounds silly, but I suddenly
swords.
remembered that...
And cat girls.
I have a real life, and now I have to go back to it. And I was kind of surprised by that, and I totally skipped class Monday because I didn't have any of my homework done.
Yeah. Well, it's totally, escapism. You escape from the real world into the world of whatever show you're watching for, 12 hours, 24 hours, however long. And sometimes you just really need that in your life.
You get so into it that you can care so much about the people on the screen, so much more so than you would if you watched it spread out over 26 weeks.
Yep.
In general, though, I'd say you really can't marathon anything that's longer than about 39, 40 episodes.
No, it just takes too damn long.
Even Utena, we didn't marathon. We watched it in spurts. Like, we marathon...
I guess the way you could do that is if you were some punk kids in high school or younger and you had summer vacation and you didn't have, like, summer camp or anything and you just sat around your house every day doing nothing, you could get all your high school friends together and you can marathon something big, like, a Gundam, which is 50-something episodes long or something like that. But other than that, more than 50 episodes, you really can't do it. It just doesn't happen.
I mean, off the hand, any shows that you should marathon if you haven't seen them already. Just, if you want to get in on this whole experience. Because if you pick a bad show to marathon, you're not going to enjoy it.
No, very bad.
Like Crest of the Stars, I love it, but it's a little slow. Or Gasaraki, you don't want to marathon the first half of that.
I think a good show to start marathoning, like to begin your marathon practice, is Big O. Because Big O Season 1 is 13 episodes. And then Big O Season 2 is 13 episodes. So you can sort of break it into 2 days.
Except for the fact that Big O 1 ends on one of the bigger cliffhangers in anime.
I know, but you can also watch it as a single 26.
True.
So it is sequential. There's not a lot of recap.
Actually,
everything moves quickly. The dub is awesome.
I would say that watching Big O in marathon form is better than watching it individually, straight up. And you won't realize why until you start watching Big O 2.
Yep.
Basically, we did a Final Thoughts episode on Big O 2, so go listen to that if you want to find out more. But basically, Big O, the first 13 episodes are this interesting but a little bit episodic, silly, not too serious, but kind of serious. It's a romp. It's fun. It's a robot punching other robots in the face.
Yep.
And let me tell you, that's probably the best punch in anime ever.
Possibly.
When the elbow thing goes chunk.
Yep.
And then you watch Big O 2, and the whole show is completely different at that point. And if you think about Big O 1, you realize a lot of interesting things.
It switches from Mad Batman to Sad Batman.
I don't think we ever explained that.
We're not going to.
No, of course not. Sad Batman.
Mad Batman.
Bad Batman.
Glad Batman.
That didn't happen.
No, it didn't.
There was no Glad Batman in that entire... No, there was. Pre-Bat incident, Bruce Wayne, when he was a kid, was Glad Batman.
Yep.
That's the only Glad Batman.
Yep. All right. I
Right,
think this
but,
episode is dying here.
El Hazard, the original OAV, is a great marathon. 'Cause it's pretty
that's
short.
awesome.
It's compact, it's funny, but it's also a beautiful love story. And the story, this doesn't ruin anything, but it's a very perfectly executed story that comes full circle. And if you watch it all in one go, it'll have a lot more impact.
Yeah.
Especially because then you can watch the first episode again. Like, literally, watch El Hazard, then watch the first episode again, and then stop there. Yes. Of course, Escaflowne, Ava, Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, any show that's awesome, separate, will be also awesome marathon.
Hellsing ain't so bad, actually.
Yeah, Hellsing's a good choice.
Because if you don't keep watching it, you'll lose interest.
Yep. I'm trying to think of more, but, oh.
I'd say Utena, but no. The real answer is marathon the last 13 episodes of Utena.
The first season of Initial D.
Yeah, the first season of Initial D. Because basically, once you get drawn into that show, you're either going to love it or hate it.
A lot of the shorter Gundams, like some of the Gundam OAVs.
Oh, yeah,
those
don't
are
watch War in the Pocket episode at a time. Just watch it like a movie.
Yep. All right. I think we're done.
I think we're done. Stay tuned tomorrow. We'll get back to our regularly scheduled Geek Nights. And look forward to seeing us at Kineticon, Otakon, the New York Anime Festival, and Katsucon.
We're not going to Anime Next this weekend. We thought we were, but we're not.
Yes, we'll talk about that next Wednesday.
Yep. After Anime Next.
Yes, of course.